But for now, we're going to give you some information concerning the hurricane. Let's go ahead and put it into motion for you. And as we do, you can see a couple of things fairly clearly. First of all, the center of circulation, or the eye, as we say it, is continuing to move northwestward, and you can pretty much see it all during this afternoon, located as of the latest satellite picture right in the center of this big, dense, overcast cloud condition. And it, as we mentioned before, continues to move northwestward at about 17 miles an hour. Notice how some of the higher level clouds, the green and the blue you see way out here, are some of the higher level clouds up at about 35,000 feet that are starting to really pick up speed and get funneled to the northwest. Now, what is happening is we have a big dome of high pressure to the north of the hurricane, and that has pretty much steered the hurricane to the west and the northwest the last couple of days. Meanwhile, in the southeastern United States, we have a big upper-level low-pressure system. So between the two, they're kind of squeezing together and acting as an accordion, but they're also acting as a very strict, narrow channel for the hurricane to take. So it's getting a little bit easier, when we say a little bit, just a little bit easier to forecast the track of it now, because it appears that it really wants to continue just to move northwest and most likely in the direction of some of those clouds that you see there, and it is moving northwestward fairly quickly. Let's go ahead and take you on back down and show you some of the specific information. Those are the coordinates: 27 north, about 73 west. Now that would put it about 600 miles southeast of Savannah, Georgia, and the sustained winds reportedly at 105 miles an hour. And we do have higher gusts in the squalls associated with the hurricane. And again, there's the movement moving northwest to 17 miles an hour. Tropical storm force winds, about 64 miles an hour or so, anything below that, extend well out from the center of the hurricane, as is typical, about 100 miles in this case. And then you have the hurricane force winds as we head on in closer to the center of circulation. Now, what you should know, at least in this point in time, if anything, is that there is a hurricane watch in effect. And it covers a good part of the southeastern U.S. from Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, all the way down all the coastal communities in South Carolina, Georgia, on past Jekyll Island, and then finally ending at about St. Augustine, Florida. That is where the hurricane watch is in effect. And we also want to point out, for those of you concerned, that the hurricane watch is still posted, I believe, until 9 o'clock local time for the Grand Bahama and Abaco Island. So we'll keep watching that area as well. Here's the strike probability. In other words, what is the probability, let's say, of the center of the hurricane passing within 60 or 65 miles of a given location on land? So we take a place, let's say, as you head on down towards Hilton Head in South Carolina, about a 20% probability right now that you would see the center of the hurricane, or the eye as you speak, would pass within 60 miles either north or south of that given point. And you can see as you head on northward, it gets progressively less of a probability, also heading southward. And remember, the hurricane right about through here and moving northwestward, so this is the area, at least right now, that is having the highest probability of a strike, or seeing the hurricane actually pass onto the coastline. The coast of Georgia and extending on up towards Hilton Head and the southern coast of South Carolina. That is where the highest strike probability is right now. As we go through the next 24 hours, as the hurricane gets closer to the coast, those probabilities may shift a little bit north and south depending on what the motion is and what the speed is. We'll keep you abreast of any new developments regarding the strike probability. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the tidal reference points now as far as the hurricane is concerned. Wilmington, North Carolina, all the way down to Mayport in northeast Florida. Now, what you see here is a look at some of the tidal reference points and the tides. The high tides occurring tomorrow night. We're talking Thursday night after midnight as you head into very early Friday morning. A case in point would be, let's say, Savannah River entrance in Georgia at 2:09 a.m., the time of high tide. And now let's go ahead and sort of project things out a little bit. If Hugo were to come in around the Savannah River entrance in Georgia at the time of low tide, you'd have your regular low tide, but then above that, if there was a 10-foot storm surge, this is what you're looking at, the 10-foot storm surge on top of the normal low tide. Okay, that's one situation. Let's carry it a little bit farther. What happens if Hurricane Hugo comes on shore at the time of high tide, as we mentioned just a moment ago, roughly 2:49 or so in the morning? Well, if that occurs, the situation gets tremendously worse, because then we have not only a 10-foot storm surge, if that indeed is how high the storm surge is, but then we have to throw that on top of the fact that we have about a 6.5-foot high tide. Then we're looking at water levels about 16.5 feet above the mean low water. So significant difference on the timing of this hurricane and when it comes on the shore. So we're going to be watching this very, very carefully. There's Tropical Storm Iris now.
We're going to take a look at Hugo now, put this into motion for you. And what you'll see is the outflow from Hugo and the clouds and a band of rain that is headed to the northwest, and it extends all the way over into the Memphis, Tennessee area this morning. Heavy rains around the coastal areas of South Carolina, strong thunderstorms.